Thank you so much for interviewing at our program. Could you tell me a little bit about yourself? So, starting off with the why you, talking about your background, how you grew up, a little bit of your passions, a lot of the things that I got from personal statement, which I'm going to say two things. One, it's good because I'm like, you are the same person. I am interviewing the same person as the personal statement. So I like
Mhm.
that. But I'm going to do the other side and think of, I want to learn new things. I want to learn who you are and not all about medicine. This is like the one question that I want to learn who you are as an individual, what drew you into medicine, what drew you into helping people or taking care of people, like humanity, get at my heartstrings. It's like the one opportunity you have that I want to come out of that interview and have more memory from that who you are. It's going to separate you from all the other IMGs, all the other individuals that I'm interviewing with. Think about strengths, think about values. Values is a big thing. I value honesty, humility. So think of your values. You mentioned being international. How do you think that opportunity of being from a very different culture will impact you or challenge you or even benefit you working now in the US system? Talked about being in different countries. I would have loved more information about languages. I know that's a skill that you guys have in IMGs. Like from us as in the US, like I speak just Spanish and English and they think super cool. You guys are like, oh, I speak all these languages. Say it if you've had any experience in the US speaking with patients who speak that same language, gold. Why that location and why did you specifically choose research? You talked about the different activities that you did working in the pandemic. What were the different challenges that you saw during the pandemic? I want to hear why it was overwhelming because in medicine right now, we're all about burnout. So I want to hear how that situation, how even if you didn't do it then, it made you start thinking of how you're going to manage overwhelming situations in medicine. Do you connect with your family? Do you connect with your co-interns? Do you check in on your co-interns? Do soccer after to burn off steam? Like that is big right now in medicine. I love that you said it was overwhelming because that is humility, that is humbleness, and that's reality. I already like in my mind, I was like, perfect. I like this person because they recognize that medicine isn't flowers and roses and rainbows and all that. It's real. Working with death and working with grieving individuals. Talk to me about how a internal medicine resident should go about breaking bad news to a patient. Thinking about internal medicine, where you spend the next 3 years just on the floors, at what point, how do you consider bringing in specialists versus being able to handle things on your own? As an internal medicine, when do you feel not comfortable or when we should bring in specialists versus can handle it on your own? My attending was constantly asking us, should we bring in cards? I'm like, really? You're a doctor. You can do it. So it's a constant thing that we ask. And I have a feeling at some point you're going to have that question. Working with fellows, specialists, collaborating with them. Give me an example of a time that you received negative or bad feedback. I'm a resident, so how are you going to contribute to our residency team environment? What are you going to bring as one of our co-residents? Talked about being jolly, fun. I like to have discussions. I like to go to food places, cycling, chai. I was like, can you please be one of my co-residents? That got me excited. So that's really the type of self of you I want to see. Now we have medical students at our university. How do you plan on teaching them and working with them? Personal life experiences about being friendly, being a mentor, inspiring them. That's key for medical students. You want to teach them. And that's what we want to see from residents. We want to see that they're willing to take the time after a cool case and go show them how to do a physical exam or talk more about a certain disease or do a PowerPoint education. Now, I saw you have dance on there. It's spontaneous. That word caught my eye because I'm also a dancer. So tell me a little bit what that means of spontaneous. I'm going to put on my residency program director hat. Just list up the questions you have for me as a program director. Remember to have 3 questions for program director, attending, and residents written out on a sticky note and have in the corner of your computer, just that way, or even written down and you say, oh yes, let me look at my notes and questions. Recognizes that we're not robots, that we're not memorize everything. As long as you state it, oh, I am going to look at my notes to see what questions I have for you. I don't have notes, and it's a way for you to just buy time. Putting on my attending hat, tell me what questions you have for me as an attending. Putting on my resident hat, what questions do you have for me? I'm a patient that's in your hospital. I've had this as an interview multiple times that I've had patients show up for my interview. What questions do you have for me? Patients that were like patient of a hospital, family member of a resident, like super random that really throw you off, but they want to see, do I want you as my doctor? Is this someone that is like the other doctors in the hospital that I see? Or is this like something that they are just nice on paper and nice to the doctors, but once they get to a patient, they're like rude? When you're speaking with, let's say, a patient, ask them more about their own experience with that specific program, because opportunity to see from a different perspective how the attendings, how the residents, how the doctors, how the hospital is treating them. Most likely, if they're doing this, most likely it's a positive. But you still want to see like what has been a great experience with one of the doctors that worked with you. Why did you choose this hospital versus other hospitals? There are other hospitals in the city. So why did you choose this one? Why did you continue to come back? At it, like, what do you hope to gain? Because it's a co-interview. They're getting stuff from you and you're getting stuff from them. I remember I was working with a program director and he asked some very invasive, but kind of rude comments. And so that told me, like, I do not want to be with that program. Like, I do not feel safe and comfortable. That was me to them, me getting from the program. And so, same thing, like, they're interviewing how I react, and I'm interviewing how they react. The way that you were talking was very emotionally connecting. I felt like you were in the room with me, even though it was digital. It didn't feel scripted. It felt very relaxing, like we were having a dialogue, even though I didn't say much. But what I personally enjoy, and I know that anyone probably under the age of 60 enjoys. Now, if it's above 60, above 50, make sure that you are more formal, more like to the dot. Learn how based on who they are. Sometimes that means, like, a lot of the times it's the chairs of programs that are usually in the older generation. They're the ones that are like, I ask a question, you answer. I expect it to be short and sweet, answer the question, move on. Like, what you did was great for the younger generation. Just remember to, obviously it's hard to practice without me being like maybe changing face or something. Just keep that in the back of your mind, especially like you want to research the people that are interviewing you. You will probably get a list if you haven't already who are interviewing you. Most all of them provide that, so you can look at what specifically they do their research on, what they got their fellowship in, where they've worked before, and then so you can really tailor your questions to that individual person, or even throw in something of that they're a palliative doctor. If they don't ask you a question, throw in an example of when you were in palliative or when you were in with the death and dying. So, those are little tiny things that you can do while answering a question to just make them really like you, in addition to just who you are as a person. That wasn't really feedback to how you work. It was just like something that, as long as they rate you highly individually all together, that's what matters. How do you keep track of time? It's up to you. You can keep a timer, you can just glance at the clock occasionally. And I would say if you internally feel like it's taking too long, most likely it's taking too long. Listen to that gut feeling and think, wrap it up with a sentence. And that's why I learned this thing. Be very attuned to your own emotions of, oh, this is feeling really odd and long. Don't say I'm comparing programs. You said to residents, which really doesn't really matter to residents, but I want to put it out there. Ready to get the last 5 minutes to talk about like vision. Love what you're wearing, love color with a hint of professionalism. That shadow behind you though, right above your head. So see if you can get another one. Feeling that should remove that shadow behind it. You can't get rid of it. It's reality. We know. But I just remember that it was distracting. I don't know. I want something. What it is. It's better than the bed and trash. And so I'm going to give you props for that. For not having something like, so that part is good, but let's do something that brings in color, as long as it's not too distracting. I put in my blog post with tips for interview, and there's a video on the top with more tips specifically on interviews.